I'm joined now by political policy researcher Ash Hunt. Very good morning to you, Ash. I mean, well, how does he exploit, first of all, the golden glow of such an unexpected victory?
Well, I mean, I think that's the thing, is this is a great victory for the Conservatives and a great victory for Cameron himself. But this Parliament is not going to be without its difficulties, OK? And I think he's going to face a significant headache, basically, with the EU referendum, which is going to be the focus, particularly for the Parliamentary Party in the next 2 years. So he's got to be very careful to ensure that that doesn't become too much of a problem for him.
I mean, I heard someone saying yesterday, what about if he held it a bit earlier? UKIP were calling for that during the course of the campaign. Now, they will have no influence on the Conservative Party, well, certainly not in terms of votes. What about if he held it a bit earlier and got it out of the way and used some of that golden glow?
I mean, maybe, but I think he's, at least for Cameron, he's set out this timetable. You know, he's going to want the 2 years to make the case to Britain. I mean, the difficulty for Cameron is going to be the fact that he's essentially going against the rest of his party. You know, he's got a significant amount of the Parliamentary Party that are going to want to get out of the EU. The core Tory vote will want to get out of the EU. But he is very much obviously going to want to campaign to stay in. So, you know, I think he's going to want that period of time to, you know, do the best he can to make the case and secure enough of the reforms. I mean, part of the issue at the moment is we're not really sure what these reforms are going to look like, what form the debate is going to take, in how he's going to try and get some of these back. And he's going to want to shore up as much support in the EU as possible in order to sort of get some of these decent reforms back.
And the other big looming problem, and it will become apparent when the new House of Commons sits again, is those 56 SNP MPs. What does he do to make Scotland feel better, I suppose?
I mean, I think, again, it's going to be I think it's the second headache for David Cameron. You know, he's going to have a serious chorus of anti-austerity SNP MPs that are going to want to make their voices and Scotland's voices heard. You know, there are talks about possibly, you know, increased devolution. I don't think for Nicola Sturgeon, Alex Salmond, all the rest of the SNPs that the Smith Commission is going to be enough. So he's got to look at the possibility of perhaps yielding to them more financial and fiscal devolution. But, you know, for the Conservatives, really, this is not actually going to be that much of a priority at the moment. They've secured a majority.
But the danger is, and we can see the narrative, they can see the narrative from the SNP writ large. You're ignoring us. You absolutely don't care about Scotland. Scotland gets a bad deal. You're instituting more austerity. We don't want it. And ultimately, Nicola Sturgeon, looking out of there, is going to say, we want another referendum.
I mean, from one perspective, a lot of people have been saying that, well, this victory for Nicola Sturgeon is actually going to lead to a second referendum. But I don't think it's really about that as much. You know, firstly, remember, we're in a United Kingdom. There are other, other parts of the United Kingdom that need to be equally represented, just as much as Scotland. Okay, but obviously, clearly, Scotland now has a parliamentary mandate to have a much stronger voice in Westminster. But, you know, the SNP's victory is really due to the fact that Labour is now politically anorexic. They've been the architects of their own political starvation, and they've neglected voters north of the border. You know, they've taken them for granted. And, you know, now they're being punished for it. And actually, I think the SNP's rise is more due to that and Labour's own failings. I mean, look, they failed in England just as much.
And just one last thing. I mean, you know, one opportunity here for them to nail down the lid, I suppose, on the Labour Party is get those boundary changes through that they couldn't get through when they were in coalition with the Lib Dems, which, of course, favour the Conservatives.
Exactly. I mean, I think voting reform and boundary reform is another thing that they need to be looked at. I know boundary reform was looked at in the last Parliament, but we have a system at the moment which favours Labour to the extent that, you know, they can get much more seats with less of the vote. And I think it's time that we have a serious boundary reform, which will also reduce some of the MPs as well, so it saves the taxpayer money. You know, it's going to be a win-win, particularly for Conservative voters. OK, Ash, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed, Ash. Now, much more on the election to come, of course, throughout Sunrise. But coming up next...